Okay, so like I said, we're going to talk a little bit more about vehicle buying, specifically in this case, a kind of one of the car dealership scams. There's lots of different scams.
Browsing for a new car, buyer beware. Dateline's chief consumer correspondent Lee Thompson followed a woman named Tori on her car buying trip. Tori went to Town and Country Ford, owned by Sonic Automotive in Charlotte, North Carolina. You might be surprised to see what Dateline's hidden cameras found. Watch.
The smell of a new car, the touch, the look, a shiny new Mustang, and it's hers. Payments she can afford and a salesman who treated her well. But this consumer advocate says Tori's just been taken for a ride.
They probably made more than $5,000 or $6,000 on her in extra profit, and profit that she did not have to pay on the car, on fees, and on the financing.
Ramar Sutton has been investigating the car industry for 20 years. He is the author of Don't Get Taken Every Time, a guide to buying a car. Dateline asked Sutton to evaluate Tori's deal.
When a dealership sees a person like Tori who is trusting, who has thousands of dollars in cash, who listens to them and doesn't argue, the entire dealership comes to a halt because this is the home run they've been waiting for this week, maybe.
Your payments are about $360 a month.
Tori was pretty proud of herself after she got Big Al to lower her monthly payment from $360 to somewhere around $280.
Because I'm working for you, obviously, until I get you to say yes.
Let's figure that out. 360 times 60 months is $21,600. 280 times 60 months is $16,800. Tori thought she was saving $4,800.
Is this the best deal I'm going to do?
It's the best deal. It's the best deal.
Okay.
But wait, all that turns out to be just so much razzle-dazzle.
And you will be approved, and you can take the car once today.
But what Big Al never told Tori was while he did lower her monthly payment, he did it by increasing the number of payments. Watch. 280 times 60 months is $16,800. But Big Al extended Tori's loan to 72 months. 280 times 72 is $20,160. An extra $3,360 that Tori will have to pay. The actual price of the car didn't change at all.
If they work you on payments, you never know what you're paying. You have no idea what you're paying for the car. And most of us are payment buyers, and it is the most dangerous way to buy a car. Dangerous meaning very expensive.
Tori's then passed off to the finance manager at Town and Country Ford, who starts working on an interest rate. The only hitch, he says, Tori's earnings, about $1,000 a month, aren't quite enough for a new Mustang. But with a stroke of the pen, he solves that.
But if I make that 0 and 8, now there's always a chance that they could also make us prove your income.
Yeah.
Tori's credit application now says she makes $1,800 instead of $1,000 a month.
I'm going to go with 1,800. Whether I put 1,500 or 1,800, it's not going to matter. But I'm going to need a minimum of 1,800.
At the time, our producer who was with her asked,
But she's not going to get in trouble for that, is she?
No, there's no way you can get in trouble for it. It's all just about, basically all this is for is to get your loan approved.
well, he was wrong. Falsifying a credit application could be a felony. Time to talk to finance manager Eric Bird.
I'm Lee Thompson from,
Nice to meet you.
from Dateline NBC.
Oh, you're kidding me.
Sonic declined an on-camera interview, but wrote Dateline saying what we captured on our hidden cameras are clear violations of our company's policies. Sonic said it is looking to enhance controls to keep this from happening again. Is it possible what happened to Tori was just an isolated incident, some rogue employees? This man says no.
And I see hundreds of new people going in this industry that are being trained to do exactly what they trained me to do, to be a liar, a thief, and a crook. And it's got to stop.
Anyway, so you can see why I got a bit of whatever hot water with some of the students. But those aren't my words, and I'm not saying they all are crooked. But there's a few bad apples out there. But again, that whole notion of don't worry about the price, just worry about the payments. What can you pay? And that's not a good strategy for anything. I've seen. I was actually down in Florida when I was in the military. I was at a Navy base there, and they had sold this poor sailor a vehicle that he couldn't. I mean, not even close to being afford. He had like $40 left after his monthly payment was done. It was one of these things where they fudged his income. They gave him a loan, and he couldn't eat. He couldn't put gas in it. He couldn't put insurance on it. And then another friend of mine, he was a lieutenant, Navy lieutenant, so he's an officer. He's got extra cash, and with the same car dealership, he's getting 20% return on his money because it's his cash that's being used to float out these loans to these people. And so, if my buddy is getting 20% return, that means that the dealer is probably loaning for in excess of 25% to these guys, and that's why the payments got stupid expensive. And it's like for a Camaro. I'm not sure a murderer, not a big reason to have one. But anyway, the other thing that they talk in there too is look at the payment period. Especially again if you're living someplace, again out in the valley, are you going to be able to drive a vehicle for 72 months? 72 months is a long time. 60 is 5 years, so that's actually 6 years. And if you're putting 20,000 anyway, you're going to have to not only be making those payments, but you're going to have to also be working on maintenance and other costs. So the lemon laws. Let's see where we. Yep. So we talked about. Well, let's see where we were. Yeah, negotiation, setting the car price. That's kind of difficult, but you do have some online resources. But just be careful that they're objective online resources. Sorry. And then financing loans. Again, you're in a position of strength if you know beforehand what the bank will give you. You can tell whether they're giving you a good deal or not. That being upside down, having negative equity in the car, that was the situation of my friend with the truck where he tore the exhaust system out from under it. He goes in there and you incur such depreciation when you drive it off the lot. You take a $30,000 car and you want to sell it after you've driven off the lot. Well, now it's a used car. 25 is probably the most you're going to get for it. And so you're upside down. You owe more on it than it's worth. Rebates, low interest financing, as long as it's not, a gimmick, a come on. There are certain times when, back in 2007, 2008, where the car companies are almost going to go out of business, and they did have some screaming deals. But you were also betting on the fact that, you might own a Chevrolet, but there might not be any more Chevrolet dealers. So that wasn't you accepted a bit of risk by buying one of those for a while. Consider the APR, annual percentage rate, total finance charge. And yeah, you can use bankrate.com, but a lot of times, like I say, the dealerships will have artificially low rates, but it may be reflected in a higher purchase price. Lemon laws depends on the state. So, if you're someplace like California, yeah, there's going to be a lot of expensive procedures, getting a car registered, getting the sales taxes paid. All that stuff's going to be pretty high. But they do have a reasonable lemon law protection type thing, where the vehicle breaks for, say, a certain number of times for the same thing. It can be legally defined as a lemon, at which point the dealership is going to have to take it back. But trying to make that happen is very, very difficult. Automobile operation costs, usually have it correctly, have fewer repairs. Yes, kind of a no-brainer. Variety of servicing options. Generally, if you're going to take it to the dealer, you're going to, if it's new, you got to do what you got to do. But usually, if you can find a specialty shop, it's a little lower overhead. But vehicle maintenance costs are what they are. They can get pretty expensive. Other servicing, yeah. Walmart's up here obviously don't have that service, but in the lower 48 they do. And there's all sorts of aftermarket, people that change fluids and check fluids and stuff like that. And unless you can do it yourself, that might be a viable option, because going to the dealership can be a bit pricey. If you do end up with complaints, again, this is not just vehicles, but this is obviously the best way to do this is, despite of what they say, like say you buy a new TV set, and there's always a sticker on there. If you have any problems with this, do not take it back to the store. You must deal with us. No, I didn't. Yeah, I'm not paying shipping. I'm not doing all this. I'm taking it back to the store, and I've never had any real trouble as long as it's fairly timely. If you do get in a situation where you have to send it back, then you have to call them beforehand. You got to get an RMA type thing, a document from them authorizing but you just don't want to go there. I would take it back to the place of purchase. The other thing is the higher level communication. Don't take no for an answer, especially if you're in the right. So everybody's got a boss. If you truly have done something that you feel like you've been ripped off, just keep working until you get up to the highest level. And again, it's your own personal strategy. I find emails are quite often pretty easy to delete. They're easy to write, they're easy to send, but a real handwritten letter mailed to them, it seems to have a little bit more staying power. But anyway, it's your own strategy. And I'm not saying not to do the email, but those ones where you basically fill out the thing in an automated method and you send it off, it doesn't work. I don't have much success. I usually have more success with an actual letter. Obtaining assistance for a consumer agency, I've never really, whether it be Better Business Bureau or one of the government agencies, difficult to work. And then taking legal action, litigation. You have to even see whether that's even in the cards, whether you may have signed away the right to basically take them to small claims court. And also keep in mind that loser pays here in Alaska. So if it's just I'm hoping to win kind of thing, I took one person to court up here, and it almost cost me a fair amount of money because I took them to small claims court. They opted for superior court, and it was just getting blown up. I was having to pay for legal fees, and I just killed it right off. And actually, the lawyer, but anyway, it was a contract dispute, and it was kind of a flimsy contract, and there's a chance I was going to lose, and I couldn't afford to pay for all these legal fees. So anyway, be careful what you do, especially here in Alaska in terms of litigation. But what you'll often find, another issue I had was with, I think it was AT&T, maybe Verizon. Anyway, completely got ripped off where they said I had all kinds of usage and all this other stuff, and it wasn't the case. I mean, legitimately, I honestly can say it wasn't. And so I was taking a small claims court, but yeah, I found out that in their contract you actually have agreed to arbitration, which is not necessarily a bad thing. I called the arbiter. Anyway, what they are is usually it's a court type setting, but it's kind of a lower threshold, kind of no frills, and it's a little quick. Yeah, there's two different ways. You've got mediation, which in my mind is worthless. I mean, mediation, yeah. They'll talk about in here, they'll talk about binding arbitration, and they'll talk about mediation. Well, binding arbitration it's kind of like a redundant term. Arbitration is binding. It's the same sort of thing, and typically it's facilitated by a retired judge, and it's some sort of commercial affair. But in the case of, I guess it was AT&T paid for the arbitration. So I just called them up. I said, this is the factors of the case. And the guy looked at it and said, yeah, we're not going to take this any farther. We're just going to refund those charges. So that was the end of it. And but it was arbitration. So, since I'd entered into it, I didn't have any recourse. It didn't go my way. But again, the arbitration, they're even though they're paid by AT&T, I haven't found too many people who have trouble with them. Mediation, though, I've been involved in that as well, and all the mediator says is, he tries to find some middle ground. And if you're a reasonable person, they probably can't do anything that you can't do. And in this case, the disagreement was a very unreasonable person, incredibly unreasonable. My ex-wife She didn't agree, and so it's like, so what are we doing here? I knew she was unreasonable before. We've just validated that. Can I move on? I did have an ex-judge go, yeah, you're right, man. She's completely unreasonable. Well, thank you. Can I have my $200 back? Anyway, but I had to look like the reasonable guy, so I had to pursue every option before we went to court. Good luck with that one. But it can happen in a business sense as well. So the place of purchase, yeah, the main office, consumer agencies. So you've got the BBB. They're out there, but I didn't find them when I have called on them. They're more of a pre-purchase type thing. You might look up a company that you're thinking about. If I'm going to have a roof put on my house, I might check and see if they've got a whole string of BBB complaints. But in terms of actually taking action, not so much. So mediation, third party, but that key word is non-binding. I mean, I don't know. It's maybe in certain situations that could do something. But arbitration, a decision is going to come out of there, right or wrong. You may not agree with it, but it's the same as court. It's a lot like court, as a matter of fact, but it's just lower cost for everybody involved. And in state protection office, depends. I've never pursued much here in the state of Alaska, but most agencies are a bit whatever. You have to have some time in your hands. The best thing to do is take care of it though with the person who actually sold it to you. And then federal agencies, again, now we're literally making a federal case out of it, and may not be as big a deal. So small claims. So that's what I filed. I filed a small claims suit. It was over a horse issue. Not a big deal. I bought a horse that was bred. When the filly was born, I wanted to register. The lady said, nope, that wasn't included. I'm saying, yeah, you told me it was. But she told me it was. And on the contract, it didn't specifically state it. So that's where the lawyer said, probably going to lose. So anyway, I went to small claims. She opted for a jury trial. I'm like, really? This is over a silly... So anyway, I had to turn it off, basically. And it all worked out in the end. Class action lawsuits. So what you do in a class action lawsuit, a good example of this is like the whole Volkswagen thing. Anybody familiar with what went on there? They cheated. They cheated on their emissions requirements, right? They programmed their emissions on their vehicles. When you plug in the little device to check the emissions, they put it into a different mode that was very clean. And so it would pass an emission test. You unplug it, and it goes polluting like 11 times the standards. Well, if you happen to own a Volkswagen and you want to resell it, it's not going to be worth as much because Volkswagen's image has been damaged. But also your car, in order to get the emissions that it's now required to have, it has to be pretty severely detuned. If it was a really peppy, high-performance car, odds are after it gets tuned to meet the emissions, it's not going to be the same vehicle it once was. So anyway, you've been damaged a little bit. Now, do you want to go sue Volkswagen, one-on-one? You can. You retain that option, but how much you've been damaged? Maybe, I don't know, $800 or $1,000 or something like that. So what somebody will do, some lawyer, if you own a Volkswagen, anybody got a Volkswagen? I imagine if you did, you do. Did you get a letter or anything from anybody?
Not that I believe.
Which year is your vehicle?
I've got a 2005 Volkswagen Golf.
You're probably all right. It was really the newer ones and specifically the diesels. But anyway, keep your eye in the mailbox because you may very well, and you may have seen these for other things. I get them all the time, usually from stockbrokers that pitched a stock that didn't have the value it should have. But anyway, so what a lawyer will do, kind of an ambulance chaser guy, he'll get out there and get this whole group of Volkswagen owners, and he'll file suit on behalf of all the owners. And then he sends you a letter saying, hey, you've been damaged slightly by this Volkswagen issue. Would you like to opt in? Would you like to be part of this class action lawsuit? You and all the other Volkswagen owners have something in common here. You've all been damaged, and it's, too small a deal for you to go mano a mano with Volkswagen. So opt into this group, and then, say we settle for whatever, $2,000 a vehicle, I will give you, he doesn't say this, but, realistically, he's going to give you what, maybe $800, and he's going to, because he's taking a chance. He's initiating all the action and all that stuff, and plus he's a lawyer. So he's going to get the lion's share of the money, and then you're going to get a small portion back. Now, you can opt out, and you can go after Volkswagen directly. But is everybody going to do that? Probably not. So, in a lot of class action lawsuits, you opt in and then you hear back from them. A lot of times they don't go anywhere. That's why the lawyers' fees are so high, is because they're bad in average. I think on the Volkswagen one, it's probably a pretty clear cut. They'll probably get something back. But anyway, that's the nature of class action lawsuits. Using a lawyer's about $250 an hour. Paralegals are somewhat less, about half of that. So, a lot of times it depends what you need to get done, but just keep in mind when you're hiring a lawyer, you're like $1,000 into it before you get very far in the process. So it's got to be a pretty major item, and do a little bit of research and perhaps see if you can find a lawyer who has a paralegal, where at least you can use the paralegal for the mundane stuff and just have the lawyer help out as he needs. Legal Aid Society, prepaid legal services. So legal aid is essentially for people that don't have the funds. So, I think most of you as college graduates, unless something happens to you in college, maybe you're in a situation where they've come to your aid. But in most cases, if you have income, they're going to turn you away. Prepaid legal services sounds like a good idea. I've had a number of employers offer them to me, but big legal expenses are things they don't cover. If you had one that covered something like divorce or something like that, maybe that would be reasonable. But they usually, anyway, I've never found anything that I've ever needed in terms of a lawyer that they covered. And then personal consumer protection. But, yeah, you have to be smart in what you're signing. And if it is an actual contract, yeah, certainly that $250 for that lawyer is probably money well spent to get their advice. But for most things, it doesn't quite get to that level. So, any questions on that? I mean, we kind of beat it up a little bit. The big thing with big purchases, and we're going to spend more time talking about housing next week, but the vehicle thing is, vehicles are a necessary evil. Just try not to be too emotional. If you got a choice between living in a big house and having a nice car, I'd go with a big house every time. Housing is an asset that appreciates. Vehicles depreciate. Vehicles are, anyway, so, when you drive by an apartment building, you see all these nice new cars out front, it's like, wow, your priorities are all checked out. You could have both. You just have to have a little patience. Get by with whatever for a while, and especially when we talk about that time value of money, and people who, sometimes it's necessary. Sometimes people have student loans, they have to pay off their student loans before they can start saving. Okay, maybe that's a necessary evil because you needed the education to get the income. But to come out of college and not have much in the way of debt and jump in with a new vehicle and postpone your savings, that's not going to cost you just the price of that vehicle. That's going to cost you so much more, because that money that you'd be putting away right after college, that's the money that's going to grow into a massive amount. And so, putting away, whatever, $2,000 now versus $2,000 10 years from now, by the time you retire, is astounding what that difference would be. So, anyway, but it depends. I'm not saying to put yourself at risk, and but when you're just shopping for heated seats and needing that new vehicle each time, and if you're the type of person that is susceptible to used car people, most of the time the used car people, I would always go there with my wife, and it was just irritating. I'm not the new car guy. I've got I'll find cars on my own and track them, but they always come running up and they like shake my hand and they kind of push her aside. I'm just like, and always my buddy. I'm like, I just.
We're not friends.
Just slimy. Yeah, exactly. Just, you know, you got a job to do. This is no different than me buying whatever. I don't
Try to like avoid going to the dealership as much as possible, like even for parts. Like I hate walking up because there's like people standing around, you know, they're like,
Yeah.
I'm just here for parts. Like,
Yeah. No. Well, again, you know, and that gets back into buying type things. You know, it's funny because being overseas, I always had to order everything. But for example, I had it was a Porsche, and it was a not a great Porsche. It was a 924. I had a 928 as well, but the 924 it had parts that were common to the Volkswagen Golf, the door handles, things like that, and the Bosch stuff was the same. But if you specified a Porsche part, it was outrageously expensive. If you got the Volkswagen part, I had a part on a Corvette that was a U-joint, and it was $180. But now you've got Google, you know, get the part number, put it into Google, type it in. I found it matched up with a Chevelle, you know, whatever. It was $7. So same part, but depending on how you specified it. And anyway, you've got that power now. You know, if you're buying parts, you know, Rock Auto.
There's just stuff that like.
Yeah, dealer only items.
So
Yeah.
You gotta go to the dealer or else like to order it, but sometimes like fuel pump or something like that.
Yeah, if the car's broken,
Yeah.
you're stuck.
You
Yeah.
know, for that.
Yeah, I'm with you. There's certain things that can't be done, but anyway, try not to make the bad situation worse. So, okay, so on the project, I think we've talked about this a little bit before, but you know, we are getting to the point where, you know, really start looking at it. Again, you know, realistically, depends on your situation. If you're, you know, just a part-time student, you're already involved in your career, then maybe you can be saving and maybe you can start making those decisions. But again, the way you characterize things, the way you save money is going to be have a great impact on what's going on. Believe it or not, you know, I'm still a proponent of the stock market, even though what's going on, just because the alternatives are not good. You know, if you're buying real estate, even better. And perhaps right now I'd be saving for cash to maybe jump on this market when it hits rock bottom up here locally, which I think it might happen. But anyway, in more of a generic sense, though, you're looking at you know, when you're actually starting to get into your career. We talked about how to kind of assess what your field of study, you know, what your chosen profession makes. And again, you may switch professions throughout your life, but at least if you have a plan, you'll know. There used to be, obviously, Glassdoor, for that kind of websites kind of got wonky on us, but they used to be pretty good at telling you what people in different professions made. There's still other sites out there, though, and just, you know, it's going to be specific to your field. It was nice when we had a single site that you could type into. Let me check something real quick just to see where they're at right now, because it was a great resource. It was a great thing for I mean, somebody should start up another website that's quite a bit like it if they haven't already.
What makes you think this one's no good anymore?
Well, we did a thing like this on one of the projects, and like, so what's a prospective job in the area? So again, you know, with a pilot, you're going to have huge bell captain. Not quite the same. You're a captain still, except you're pushing a cart around a hotel. Not quite what we were looking for. Flight instructor, so they're military jobs. Yeah. So this is what we're looking for, and that's why I'm saying it's not necessarily coming up. Instructor pilot at Elmendorf. But usually, it used to come up with just kind of a category. These are more like job openings. You know what I mean? So it's gone to be more of a, let's just try the salaries section. Okay. So, national average. Again, you look down through here. Captains are making that kind of money. First officers are not. But that's kind of the range here too. 25,000, which means you're building hours. You're not you're not exactly tearing the program up, but topping out at $250,000. So, but again, are people topping out $250,000 anymore? That's probably the old salary structure. But anyway, at least it gave you something to. Let's try another one. Anybody else? Did I spell that right? Sweet. National average. But again, yeah, let's try. But you're going to be a CPA, right? So, damn near double. But they're showing a salary range of 91 to 96, 89 to 97. So, I don't see this happening. I don't think there's any CPAs working for 50,000. But it does depend on the area. I'll tell you one thing I learned. There's also paradigms depending on who you work for. Yeah. Well, and there's also a difference between public and private. In the federal government, they pay based upon cost of living. In the private sector, they pay upon desirability. Because when I was coming up here, they wanted me to go to Stuttgart, and there was going to be a tremendous amount of money, but it was going to be just transitory. I'd have to pay private schools for the kids. They'd give me a huge housing allowance. It was a bunch of money, but it was very little that was going to remain in my checking account after the second, third day of the month. But anyway, the company I work for, I said something about cost of living in Alaska. And they said, yeah, but people want to go to Alaska, so we don't pay as much. Because if you want to go to Iowa, we'll pay you more. Yeah, nobody wanted to go to Iowa. So it's different. So you got to know whether it's public or private and the rest of that. There's other things that factor into salaries, but if you're going to work for a company, you have to, if you've got a job interview, you definitely want to find out about what they're paying, because that will be a question you'll come up with in the interview, and it can actually be a determining question. The old story about, I think it was E.F. Hutton or one of these brokerage things back when they used to have regular stockbrokers, and it wasn't all automated like it is now. But they would ask people how much they thought they were worth, how much they envisioned themselves making, and if you put any limit, they would disqualify. They wanted people who the sky was the limit. They didn't want them to reach the $200,000 threshold and slack off. But then again, if you're going to work for the government, it's already set. You know what it is. If you're going to work for a contractor, they know how much their contract is, and they know how much their expectation is. So they're looking for a certain figure, and if you're too high, you may price yourself out. If you put yourself too low, they'll go, cool. And they'll hire you, and you'll be the low guy, and you're stuck. So be careful what you do. In terms of the fictitious data, privacy type stuff, I won't share your projects, but the big point is you don't have to put in this is what I'm going to do. You can just keep it generic. Somebody in my sort of field would expect to earn about this much money, might have the same sort of family situation, because it is important depending on your objectives, whether you have kids or not, or whether you're somebody who's going to stay in the area, whether you're going to buy a house or whether you're going to be moving on, and just what your lifestyle is. Especially like in real estate, there's if you wanted to maximize your potential in real estate, you would essentially act as your own property manager. But if you don't have those kind of skills, or the property's someplace else, then you might be driven to a different type of real estate. So depends what you're going to do. anyway, the whole thing is to, it's a project for you. So in terms of format, I'm pretty flexible. A lot of it is what works for you in your situation. You know what I mean? You're the one who, everybody, by the time you get to be, retirement age, is going to kind of figure things out financially. You'll be financially literate or whatever. But with the time value of money, it's information that could have been very powerful to you had you acted on it when you were younger. But now that you're too old, you're stuck. Your situation is set, and a few key decisions when you're younger, foregoing that new car and putting the down payment on a house, that could have been a life-changing event. Now, no. You've had new cars every time, and you're stuck into loans, and you're just getting by, living paycheck to paycheck. So, regardless of how much money you make, you're pretty much going to find out you're almost living paycheck to paycheck in most cases. It's sad. People's needs and wants, your needs tend to expand. It doesn't make any sense, but it happens. So 4 to 5 page paper is what you're looking at. Strategy and the financial vehicles you would use. So college savings if you're going to have kids, comfortable retirement, and then some sort of life insurance. If you're single and you're going to stay single, then how much life insurance do you need? None. Life insurance is for the survivors. So, and we'll talk about life insurance here in a few weeks, but life insurance should get to the point where you don't require it any longer because your people relying on you are in good shape. Your kids are through school. Your spouse doesn't have to take over the house. Your house is paid off. And oh, by the way, you got hopefully a nest egg of money in the bank, so you're self-insured. Because you don't want to buy life insurance when you're older, because it's going to be prohibitively expensive. So you buy term life insurance, you do it, and you hit 60 or whatever, and you basically can cancel that life insurance and move on. So it's and you should do sort of an evaluation each year to see what your situation is and see whether your life insurance is good or not. And if it needs changes, then make the changes, especially if it's term. It's cheap. I've done the situation where I was flying at the time, and a new war started, and this was the Kosovo thing, and whatever. A guy I knew who was a knucklehead. But anyway, he got shot down by an SA-6. So I upped my life insurance like right then. I kept 3 different policies, and I had $1 million worth of insurance. War's over. Okay, I don't need it anymore. I canceled a couple of those. And they asked me all these stupid questions about, how much scuba diving do I do? How much, the elephant in the room is, I don't know if you noticed, but there's a war going on, and I'm kind of part of it. But anyway, yeah, we did say a word about that. They took my blood. They did everything but talk about the impending war. So that's fine. Student loans. Again, I'm not telling people to abuse the system or whatever, but not too many people in the education field, but if you are, look at this. There are certain places you can go to work or professions you can go into. Like, for example, in the military, I had some student loans, and they were forgiven after a certain point. I didn't have much, under like $5,000, but they were forgiven. So if you're somebody unlike me, say you're somebody who went to a Ivy League school who's carrying $100,000 in debt, a student loan debt, and if I go to work for such and such school district or even the federal government is forgiven after a while, that could definitely have an impact on where I look for that job.
Same with nonprofit work. If you make a certain amount of payments to your student loan and you work in nonprofit for 10 years, they'll forgive your student loans.
So there's things like that anyway, it's incentives out there to do good work, and but make those decisions if you want to. I'm not telling you not to go in the private sector, because it's that can be pretty rewarding. But look at that. Time value of money consideration. So we're paying. You've got those graphs, those charts, but you'll see. Okay, if I delay savings till I'm 35, you're going to have to be putting away a lot more money. If you start when you're younger, you can put away a small amount of money and continue with that small amount of money. But if you wait till later, you're going to have to put away some serious cash when things are getting even more complex. You know, kids are starting to go to school and stuff like that. So, in this sort of buffer, you know, the generation past was a lot more flush with cash. The baby boomers that are, you know, there's unprecedented credit card debt. People, you know, that should not be in debt who are in debt, or people who, anyway, that excess wealth is kind of gone. Look at Social Security. That's easy to do. You know, you can go there. Social Security typically sends you like an annual assessment of how much money you would get out of your account. But the other thing about Social Security is it's not in good shape. It's been rated many, many times, and it's just insolvent, and they've got, you know, greater liabilities than they hold. So there probably is going to be means testing, which means if, you know, you have a certain amount of assets, a certain income, that you may not get your Social Security. So, you know, what can you do? But the thing is, don't necessarily factor in, I'm going to get my whatever, hundreds of dollars from Social Security. And also, it's kind of an eye-opener, too. If you had to live off Social Security, just realize just how meager of a lifestyle that would be. I've got a friend, he just called me, he's down in Colombia now, he's in Chile. Anyway, that's my new plan B. So if everything does go bad, but trying to do it here, trying to live a regular lifestyle in Alaska would be possible.
We're the sandwich generation where we have kids going to college and parents that are aging that didn't put away money. And so we have two parents two moms that live on Social Security. One's like $800 a month and one's $600 a month. So we have to subsidize their living because it won't support them at all. And so this generation, it has that harder time of putting money away because you got to take care of those sets.
Yeah. And do they own their own homes?
Neither one of them own their own homes.
See, so it's
That's all they have.
still paying for real estate. You know, if you 30-year mortgage is 30-year mortgage. If you start when you're 30, you know, by the time you're 60, at least that's one thing you don't have to worry about. And then you also have that option of a reverse mortgage, you know, where you start paying. But anyway, it's tough times. I don't get me wrong, and the government numbers that are out there are more or less bogus. So you have to kind of prepare for the future. So anyway, you can look at Social Security and see that that's pretty desperate. Life insurance, like I said, you know, we'll talk more about this, but most of your insurance that you typically carry would be term insurance. Mutual funds and stocks, I don't really want to talk about that right now. It's pretty depressing, but in terms of long-term growth, that's where you're going to make your money. I know. But again, are you selling this week? No. So have you lost any money? No. So write it out. But government-backed securities, that's not the answer. You know, it would be a good hedge. I wish I was in them this week, but again, when the market takes off again, you know, you're not even keeping up with inflation with most of those government-backed securities. So it's, you know, I hate to say it, it's, you know, largely real estate or the markets. Pension plan, that's not necessarily the norm anymore. A lot of times now it is 401ks, you're kind of on your own. Even the military is switching to something like that. So check and see what that's going to be. 401k, 403p, any of these TSP or tax deferred accounts, that'll be part of the equation. And anyway, the big thing is to get you to come up with a plan right now. And you know, again, it's not to be a miser and everything else, but if you don't have money, you're going to be, I don't know, you know, in terms of relying on your kids and other things, and it's just not a place you want to be if you can get out of it. Let me show you something too. There's I think we talked a little bit about there's different sites out there, but Bankrate.com is a site that I see often used in some of these reports, and that's not a problem. Just go ahead and you know, use the resources that are out there that are available, and people will come in here and they'll look at retirement, and they'll, type in the numbers into a retirement calculator. And are they always going to be accurate? Not always, but you can, use one of these calculators, and it'll generate a chart for you. And, you can cut and paste that into your report. So, retirement income calculator, early retirement distributions, probably not that applicable. But it'll tell you, different ideas. Now, obviously, there's tons of banner advertising, but Bankrate itself is not going to do that. What this one's going to do is you're going to type in a few sets of numbers, and it's going to come back. Yeah, the internet's kind of slow here. You'll have better luck with it on a wired connection at home. But you can, retirement incomes, annual contribution, current age of time retirement, years in retirement. Again, that's what you have to think of now. When they say 30 years of retirement, that's not really artificial. If you're somebody who's going to be retiring when they're, say, 60, I mean, people live longer every year, and so it's going to take a little longer. Anyway, but some of these graphs or whatever, you could expand those out, and you can use some of the different resources in there. We'll talk about some of the different programs too. You could go to Fidelity's a big site that will have a lot of information on it. They are in the business of selling stuff, but they will have programs for you. And again, if you're typing in your own email address, you get what you get. I mean, you're probably going to get some correspondence from them, but you can go through and maybe get some valuable information in terms of some planning advice from them. Anyway, you'll probably end up affiliated with, Fidelity, Vanguard, one of these guys at some point if you aren't already. And they do have a lot of resources that are fairly helpful, and they're not one of the companies that's got a huge load or a salesman that necessarily involved. I'll get a nasty gram from them once in a while, telling them I'm too heavy in stocks, but I guess I should have heeded their advice. Oh well, it all works out. Depends what you want to do. Any questions on the report, though? Any questions on any stuff? Tonight's just kind of not a rambling thing, but it's, seriously, I've seen more people do more just, damage over and over and over again to themselves by the way they purchase cars or lease them, even they have a new car, but they're living in an apartment. It's like, it's just not a good thing. The tax system does not incentivize that kind of behavior. The tax system incentivizes people who own property and invest and are smart with their money. Okay. All right. So next week we're going to talk a little about housing stuff, and then we're going to review for the test. What I'm going to do for the test too is I'm going to put out a video type thing. We'll talk about it here in class, but I'll go through sample test questions. And then that thing will also be available out there online for you as well if you want to review it again. I think you'll do all right on the test. I mean, the test is pretty hard, pretty thorough. But if you pay attention to what's on the review video, you'll do fine. If you blow it off, you're going to be in trouble.
Do you make the test, or do they come from a test bank from the book?
Well, the test bank is huge. Yeah, I write some of the questions, but very few. The problem with writing, it seems like it's easy to write test questions, but oh my gosh. Yeah, you don't want me to write them all because you end up throwing questions out. So and also I like to use some of the test bank information because I can be certain it's in the book. So you will hear it from me, you will see it in the book, and it's all testable. But I don't test so much on like some of the esoteric stuff. I don't talk about how to write a resume or something like that. It's usually, it's things like what's the difference between arbitration and mediation. Compare this tax thing. Would you prefer a 6% simple, or not 6%, but 6% investment that you have to pay tax on, or a non-tax investment at 4%. So you have to know a little bit, but you'll figure it out. But that's all stuff you could use in real life. So we'll do a test review afterwards, and if there's anything that's you don't think's applicable or you think's above this question, we'll discuss it. But I've written the test so that it's testing you on stuff that you need to be, financially literate. Good? All right. Thanks.